Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today on Beyond Real Estate with Jalik, where we strive to edutain, that is, educate a little and entertain more. Here we discuss topics surrounding hashtag dad life, briefly talk about a current hot topic within the real estate industry, and end with business bookend before getting to know someone just a little bit better. Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today on Beyond Real Estate with Jalik. And today we have a special guest with us, Peter Mejia. Peter, we've known each other all of a few weeks, I know. But I know Peter from the Boys and Girls Club that I volunteer at here in Monrovia. So with that being said, Peter, why don't you do a better job than I can of just introducing yourself a little bit and kind of a little bit about you?
Sure. My name is Peter Mejia, and like Nick said, I'm an employee of the Boys and Girls Club. My current position is community relations. Just kind of going out in the public and talking about the Boys and Girls Club, bringing resources. I was a Boys and Girls Club kid myself, so it's definitely in my blood. I have a beautiful family. I have two children. My daughter Nova, who's 2 months, and my son Hunter, who is 2 years old, and my beautiful wife Laura, who is definitely my support and my rock. Um, and I pretty much that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. No, I appreciate it. And our whole premises of this is to bring in different individuals occupying various spaces. Nothing specific real estate related. More broadly, I thought of Peter would be a great guest to join us for the fact that he's a new dad himself, as Jalen and I are. New being relative, of course, because I'm a dad of all of 3 months, and Jalen's got a 4-year-old, and Peter's they're mixed in as well. So nonetheless, I think it makes it for easy conversation to segue straight into our first segment here, which is hashtag dad life. And the topic, or not necessarily topic, the question I wanted to pose to you two today was, is the world a nice place? And just hearing that question, where do you go with that when trying to find an answer for that? And maybe not just for yourself, but I mean, I've had kids ask me that. So, Peter, let's start off with you as being our special guest today. Where does your mind go when if you get asked the question, is the world a nice place?
Wow, that's a very great question because I actually work at a Boys and Girls Club. So you can see, at least with the children, they can be pretty cruel and mean at times.
Yeah.
But I think agencies that, harbor positive behavior is definitely something that would be beneficial for our children to put in. Me being a dad, I look for things like that. Um, Agencies with good reputation and stuff like that, word of mouth from other folks that have put their children through programs. But is the world a safe and nice place? It's questionable. But I think also as a parent, you want to build kind of structure with your kids and being able to um, be a little strong when it comes to certain things. Um, is there a book for that? No, it's just kind of play it by ear, kind of. But little techniques is just confident boosters and, encouragement and definitely just being a support, I think is really important.
Sure. Jay, let me throw that one your way. Piggyback off some of those ideas, or do you go in a different direction when answering that question?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Peter for dang near everything that he said. Definitely, you're not going to be finding a book that just explains how to make the world a friendly place, but that does come to getting rid of a lot of those things that makes the world hard. And so when talking specifically about dad life, the best way that we as parents, or that I've found as being a parent, that can kind of take away some of those scary things that you see in the world is getting some of that uncertainty. And so that comes with building a routine, building good habits is where you're going to be able to find more productive human beings, which then makes the world less friendly. No, but are they more prepared? I guess is the best way to say how to make them better for this world. Um, that is my goal as a father in relation to this. Nick, how would you answer that seeing how young your, little Diego is.
Yeah.
You have only a few months old, so the world is definitely the world is friendly to him for the most part because
Yeah, right.
there's
He's
such
always
a
being held. He's always being fed. He's always getting the diaper change. Kid
hundred
gets
percent.
beyond 5-star treatment. No, but of course it becomes more relevant the older he gets, right? My head goes to two F words, and they're not bad words: friends and filters. What friends do we have to surround ourselves with, and what filter do we have on this world that we live in? Because I think what we think about, what anybody thinks about, it expands. If you look for it, you will find it. If you look for reasons why this world is a bad place, you will find reasons this world is a bad place. Turn on the news, watch it, and just have it on repeat. And it's going to seem pretty dim. I
Yeah.
think on the flip side, if you're looking for good things and good reasons, you're going to tend to attract those things, and you're going to be able to validate them without looking too far. Um, so that's where my head goes when answering that question. I would say the world is a friendly place, but that's also the filter in which I choose to view it and filter out the pieces, that I guess I validate and can explain. Okay, it's not perfect. There's a big difference between the world being a nice place and a perfect place. By no means is it perfect, but
Yep.
Peter's a prime example. Like our relationship is new, but it's been a great one thus far. And I guess I looked at it from a fresh lens of I don't know him, but the more I work with him, like this has been a really good change versus looking at that opportunity initially saying, who is this guy? What's he about? What does he want from me? Um, there again, you're looking at the same situation, just a different perspective of looking at it. So that's how I interpret, is this world a nice place? Um, Peter, any other thoughts with this one?
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you bring up, and it's very validated as well because yeah, if you put your kid around positive surroundings, of course they're going to pick up on those habits, and it's really nice that we pick and choose what where we want to put our kids and what kind of schooling, and we have to intervene or get involved if we start seeing our kid is not happy or whatnot. So if sometimes it's not the right setting, or it's just a little too tough, or it's just not great structure or supervision, then we pull them out. But that's more of the physical, but just the mental, I think, as well, is preparing them at home, and just again being a great support system, and knowing that they can come home and be happy, and then be safe. I think that's really good. And yeah, surrounding them with family and friends, and having these play dates and whatnot, and getting them that exposure outside. I know one of the challenges that we faced was my son was right in the beginning of COVID, so we kind of kept them away from everything, and um just taking him out to Home Depot and putting him in a basket, it was challenging. He didn't know what it was, and this
Yeah.
is a year and a half after he was born, and so it's little things like that that you can reflect on and say, okay, how can we change this so that he's not scared of a basket, or he's not terrified. So yeah, it can be small things to larger things, and how we view the world for our children, but we're always the protectors, and we're always going to worry. And even as they go off to college, you still worry. So, but you definitely want to make sure that you're um that support.
Absolutely. No, fair
And,
point.
and then Peter, you said something interesting there that I wanted to ask the both of you. So, um, when it comes to raising a kid, do you feel like you have to protect them from the bad in order to raise them properly, or is it more of a controlled leak of chaos into their life? What's the I think Peter has more of a grand scale because of the amount of children that he sees. That there might be more. If you say yes, the leak of chaos, it's like okay, well, some people it's not a leak; it's a full on flow going into someone's life. But yeah, what are your ideas on that, Peter?
You know, from personal experience with my wife, we definitely have two different um visions, our views of it. One of them being that, if he falls, my wife is real quick to go and help him up. And I'm more like, let him get up on his own. And that's just from watching other kids here. You want to let them know what it feels, a little pain, and get up. It's okay, but I'm here after the fact to support, to help you, to get you back up and encourage you. It's okay. It's going to happen. You're okay. Look, let's see what happened. And so I think, yeah, it is one of those where preparing them, but at the same token, you can't always. So you just do your best. That's all I can say.
And I think three dads all just being like, "Oh yeah, no, he fell," and I laughed, and the wife looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you?" And it was funny. It
You're
got
so
up and
messed up. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, no, I'll piggyback on that idea of you need setbacks to build your resilience in anything, right? And I think you
Good
need
point.
to make mistakes to figure out what's a better way of doing something. So there again, I think shielding has the best of intentions, but it has unfortunately bad ramifications as well. When we protect to say, don't make that mistake. Nope, you don't want to do that. Because again, how do you figure out what's better? How do you figure out a better decision? And and again, how do you build resilience without having those setbacks in life, whether it be a financial bad bad decision, or again, you're falling and everyone's always helping you to get back up, and now you don't know how to pull yourself back up. So I think it can be those small pieces, and they compound. It's a compound effect in a different way. All those little times that they had opportunities to fend for themselves, so to speak. And if they don't always have that person to be there for them, I think that's not a bad thing, because I think probably all of us have seen, it's like each one of us has had a different story, um, that's been full of setbacks and figuring out solutions.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. And when it comes to is how does your growing up, and I can present this and answer it myself, but how does your experience growing up to this point and having kids to whatever your current child's ages are affect the way that you view the world and its friendliness from the perspective of, say, the next kid or your current kid? I know with my first son, Emerson, who's 4 now, it's like it, the the way that we would even feed him, it'd be like, I'm going to water down his soda. I'm going to, like, the world is full of things that will give him, blood sugar spikes, and I want to make sure he gets all of his vitamins and minerals on a daily basis. And no, organic was a bigger thing that we had. When second kid, you're like, good luck, kid. Like, I know you'll be fine. I'm like, the world isn't as bad as I thought it was the first time. The first one lived through it. So now, I think, Peter, with you having two kids, I'd love to hear how you perceive the first kid's existence up to this point versus your second kids.
Yeah, I really think it's definitely different. There's a lot more protection or bubble around the first child. And it can be something simple like just a pacifier falling on the floor. We all had that one. And, oh, pick it up. He's okay. She's okay. She can have it. And, but it was really even just the way my son was, it was a little bit more complex with him, just for some health issues. He had, acid reflux really bad. And, my daughter gets it, but she'll just turn to the side and do her thing. And he was like, he would choke up and spit up. So we had to attend to him, but it's definitely, there is a difference. But I think, looking at it from when I grew up, I want to say that my child's going to probably face the same kind of thing, but it's just going to be different people. It's going to be there. You're going to have your bullies, you're going to have your teasers, you're going to have, your sports competitiveness, and you're going to have all that. We just try to prepare them as best as possible. It really, I can't stress that enough. And that's my goal as a parent is you're going to have this, it's going to come across one time or another. And you see it, I see it here, at my job, and we as youth development professionals, we just try to encourage them and build them up and to be stronger. And the world is going to have those people who are just going to be mean and nasty, and well, I mean, we see them as an adult, so it's part of life.
Yep.
Yeah, and Peter, on that one, I'm going to reference back to an episode that we had a few weeks ago, where so my 4-year-old is in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and me and the
Wow.
family train. Yeah, he was. They say that it's to take him out of one of the biggest things for a 4-year-old. He's not going to be laying down some arm bars on some jokers out in the Kroger parking lot, but what he will do is fall to the ground and have a space cadet kind of mentality at that age. And our whole thing was, should kids be in combat sports? Ultimately, Nick and I agreed that they are beneficial as long as it is for the aspect of that, really what any type of sport can give a kid, the structure, the body awareness, muscle motor skills, that kind of stuff. But what's your opinion on combat sports and for kids in particular?
Um, I definitely agree. I love the fact that they're getting all these young skills at such a young age. Um, I don't see anything wrong with it. Um, Now putting my kid in it just so they as an avenue for self defense because they're gonna face some bullies. Not too big on that. Sometimes we got to take a little licking and just keep on ticking, kind of thing. But it would be nice. I would like to put. I think I'd be more probably a little more firm on putting my daughter in there than my son. That's just my own opinion. I mean, I'm sure I would have to go over it with the wife. But I really I like sports, especially sports where they're combative sports because it's also something that's introduced like sportsmanship and everything else that goes with it. So it's not something that's frowned upon. Just in my point of view, it's encouraged if the kid likes it, especially and they're good at it. Um I know I have I know folks that have put their kids in for self defense reasons, and it's what they feel most comfortable with. But in my opinion, it's great. I love it.
Well, Nick, anything that you want to wrap up on for this? I'll give you final thoughts and then we'll take a short break.
Yeah, real quick. Peter alluded to this idea earlier, and that is it ultimately ends up um, being what's the environment back at home, right? With is this world a nice place? Because the friends can influence it for sure. But I think as a parent, we have that responsibility to put that friend hat on at times and facilitate that filter to help shape that, and I think unfortunately some parents don't take that responsibility. They expect other people to shape, which they will. Other people will take on that role if things are not discussed at home. In which case, kids will figure out their filter through those avenues. But in my opinion, I definitely agree with Peter that it should start and stop at home by having those conversations. Because as we've all talked about, there are numerous challenges that will always be presented, many of which will be the exact same. But as Peter also said, just different situations, different people involved. There again, that's our responsibility as us as dads to help facilitate those and make sense of them in what can sometimes feel like a very complicated world. So
Yep.
that's how I'll conclude things with this one.
Okay.
You have
Perfect.
something there, Jay?
No, I'm going to be editing this little part out. So uh, I have a coworker that is on the phone behind me, but that's okay. I saw it pick up just a little bit, but
Yeah, yeah.
all stuff that will be edited out. Um, but no, so yeah, I think that's a good place to end it. I know that we spoke a little bit longer, but to the point of Peter is continually dealing with children
Yep.
and specifically their development. So I think this was a section that benefited from a longer conversation
Yep.
based on Peter's expertise. So we'll wrap up this one, take a short break, and come back with Real Estate Roundup. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast so far. Wanted to let you know about something free Nick and I are giving to every single one of our listeners, and that is HomeBot. HomeBot is a free monthly real estate digest. You can know the value of your home, or if you're looking for a home and don't want to be bombarded by realtors giving you calls and mortgage lenders, a free tool that lets you look at what is currently happening in your real estate market. Check the link below and be sure to sign up today. All right, let's jump back into Beyond Real Estate with Jalik. All right, welcome back to Beyond Real Estate with Jalik, and our special guest, Peter Mejia of the Boys and Girls Club of Monrovia is here with us. Today, during Real Estate Roundup, we're going to be discussing just what drives the real estate market. It's something that we hear a million different opinions on from every source of news that we get. So we're going to open it up first to our awesome guest, Peter. Peter, in your opinion, what drives this real estate market?
Oh, wow. I want to say what's driving it is definitely popularity. I mean, I feel like it's just people feel like it's the right time. Um, Things are shifting. I don't have a clear understanding of it with other stuff going up, groceries and gas and whatnot, but it seems like a lot of people are jumping on the house market rally, and it seems to be doing good. So it's just people continue to see that progression, and it seems like there's it's also people that have been at their homes for a very long time, and it's time to sell. Kids have grown up or whatnot, and there's more availability, I guess. But it seems like the cost is also high, but people are still buying at this time. So I would say it's just primarily popularity, I guess. And you hear it everywhere. You're hearing it everywhere you look.
Yeah, I think that's a good, actually a pretty dang accurate summarization of what's going on and what's driving this market. Nick, anything to piggyback off of what Peter's summary was there?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree 100% in that popularity. You want social proof. We all want social proof that something is real,
Mm.
and I think the fact that, like you said, it is for, yeah, lack of a better way to put it, it's a popular thing to do. People are talking about it. People are talking about how much money they're making out of it. People are talking about getting a second home, which drives not just the conversation, but action. With that said, I'll give my opinion of it very broadly, that change drives the real estate market. Peter alluded to it's just time to sell because kids grew up, right? That's changing people's lives. Inevitably and unfortunately, you have divorces. That's changing people's lives. You have some that need to downsize. You talked about the kids moving out of the house. I don't need this 2,500 square foot home anymore. I need a 1,200 square foot home because it's just me and my wife or a husband or whatever the case is, right? So I think the fact that change happens, you have the ability to work from wherever you want based on remote work. Boom, there's change. Now I get flexibility. Now I get to choose where I live based on the fact that I can do my job off the internet, for whatever job those allow. So I think the fact that change is really the only constant on this planet is a big driver for what keeps it going.
Yeah, change is a huge aspect of that. And the big piece of change, ultimately, you can boil down to the supply and demand. If there are more buyers than there are sellers out there, then it's a seller's market and vice versa. So right after the collapse, and a lot of people lost their homes in 2008 and 2009, there was a lot of houses and not enough buyers for those houses. Therefore, house prices went down. We're seeing the exact opposite of that right now. And then also, it comes back to the last few years, interest rates have been really good, which meant more people could afford more house. And so, all those people that were thinking, hey, I do want to move up, I don't want to live in a condo anymore. That was a big one here in Denver. During all the craziness, and everyone and everything is buying up houses left and right. like the Denver condo market actually has a surplus right now because no one wants to live in a condo in downtown in the middle of a pandemic when you can't do anything that is available downtown. It makes sense on those very basic um, analytical terms. It makes sense on the emotional aspect, which I think the both of you covered very well. Hey, it's time to move on, whether that's kids are growing up and leaving the house, you have a new kid, and so it's time to get that other room. Um, these are all things that definitely play a huge part in it. And that's being changed. And then also the economic part, it's purely a supply and demand at the end of the day. Nick and I have covered it quite a bit in previous episodes of, hey, you just have to understand that this isn't a housing bubble in the same sense. This is just there's more buyers than there are sellers for single family homes at the moment. So
Sure.
um, that's those are all the big things. And I don't know, Peter, Nick,
Yeah, Peter.
anything to add on to finish us up?
Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I wanted to ask the question of, were you guys surprised with the market and during the middle of a pandemic? Because we started to see the numbers go up, and that for me was a little thrown back. Like, aren't people scared of losing their jobs? But the what is it? The APRs they were really low at this point. So I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my first thought goes to you have there again change in preferences. Some people chose to move based on I want my kid to go to school, right?
Yeah.
And so people literally moved based on mask preference, based on what was open versus what was closed. I think that's an interesting one. What else did the pandemic do? It forced people to reevaluate how much space is enough space. When I am told I have to work from home in a pandemic scenario, I now feel like I need an office space that I didn't need it before. When my
Yeah.
gym closed indefinitely, I now want that space, whether that's in my garage or another part of my house, to say, I'm moving because I can't deal with not going to the gym and not having my office space. What is that? It's change in preferences. So
Yeah,
I
dad
think,
bod was real for a long
yeah.
time. That
it-
dad bod came on quick during the pandemic for me. I was like, whew, I'm, I'm getting husky.
So I think those preferences were driven by new challenges that we didn't have to answer before. So I agree with you 100% in that surprising, yes, but it's interesting how things have just again changed. It's shifted things. It's shifted the conversation where condos and luxury condos that had the gym, that had this, that had that, I think were and still are in many places very popular. But as Jalen just alluded to, in some bigger metro areas, especially, it is starting to slow down based on again preferences changing to say, I don't want the small space. I'll pay a little bit more for the bigger space. Which goes then to your next question of, well, how do people afford it? Like, aren't they scared of losing a job, which I think is a fair assessment and a fair question.
Yep.
Nonetheless, Jalen, you're in the
Yeah,
lending side,
yeah.
and people have to afford these things. What is your
Mm.
take based on lending practices? With is this fake money underneath holding us up, or what are you seeing?
No, it's not fake money. The big thing that a lot of people, especially if they were self-employed, saw was lending strapped down. Like it ratcheted down. You had to prove that you made money more so than ever. And if that meant looking at 3 years worth of tax returns instead of two, proving that your income, if you, especially if you're self-employed, poor self-employed borrowers just can't catch a break. Uh, Self-employed running a business, they get hit by this pandemic. If you can't prove that your business wasn't affected to a great extent, or say it was, you're kind of SOL when it comes to being able to qualify for as much home as you think you can afford. There's a lot of things where it's, hey, I am comfortable paying this amount. Doesn't matter what you're comfortable with, it's what I can prove and what that comes to with ratios. Um,
But
Most
I
of the
feel like
time, it's half
I
of your income is
I
the
feel
max
like
monthly payment. Yeah.
I feel like though that because there has been so much activity, the self-employed individual hasn't necessarily been the driver of what's been surprising for many as where's all this money coming from? So are you seeing take the self-employed out of it? Are you seeing other spaces to say, yeah, I mean, there are raises, there are pieces that I'm seeing now that, wow, people are making more in that job than I can ever remember seeing.
Oh, 100%. And one of the big things too that we're seeing during this whole thing was a lot of people wanting to be paid more, or they know that they're what they could be paid if they switch jobs or switch to a different company would increase, and they continue to do that. Um, to the point of, yeah, there might be say 100 jobs currently for every 60 people out there, so that's looking for one. So you're actually seeing a lot of people not leave the workforce, or not come back to it, I should say, but instead they're going to a different company that's going to pay them more. And a lot of them are offering working remotely, or they can do the job remotely. And so that's where you're seeing more people actually be able to afford more house, especially in places like California, Colorado, Boise, Idaho, of all places, where you see these huge amounts of appreciation. You're like, how is that house worth $600,000? It needs to be completely renovated and they need to gut the entire thing, but they're claiming that that's what they could get. And so that's where you're seeing the biggest drive. But I think also as interest rates do increase, we're going to see home prices not fall, but they will start to level out where those people that were getting those raises, they can only afford a couple 100,000 more than what they could previously. And house prices are already at that point. So now sellers have to be kind of cognizant and have the right team behind them to think, hey, we're not seeing houses go for $100,000 over asking price with a full cash offer. Just doesn't exist to the same degree that it did prior. Um, and so be aware that we might not get what you could have gotten a year ago of a heavy bidding war, but it's
Sure.
still a seller's market. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still hard to get a single family home at this exact moment.
Right,
Um,
right.
but yeah,
Peter, let's bring Peter back into this. You heard us talk real estate there for a bit. Any questions or thoughts come to mind uh, based on based on what we just talked about?
oh,
Yeah. So yeah, no, I really like the whole thought process of just how everything changes. With I didn't see that aspect of it, but yeah, it's just with the pandemic, it definitely changes things. Like Nick had mentioned about the gym and the office space, and the family growing. Those are all, for the exception of the gym, factors that I thought about. But um, it just it gives a great perspective and spin on things to see it differently. So, oh, good points. I like that.
No, I appreciate it, and I think that's the reality on the flip side, right? Let's play the worst case scenario card for those that say, "Oh, we're in a bubble and things are going to crash." It's like, not that it's good for Jalen and I, but we're going to have a job still. Why? Because people need help. They now need to get out of that house and put me in a condo, put me in a smaller home.
Yeah.
And that requires change still, and I think that's an interesting one because I, talking to other individuals, that a lot of their first thought is, well, the economy drives the real estate market. If the economy goes, the housing market goes. And I would say, well, hold on, because again, pandemic, case in point, we weren't booming economically, right? Things were shut down. Restaurants were shut down. Mom and pop shops were shut down economically. But yet we all saw this housing market just blow up in for homeowners in a good way. And there's like, bring on this appreciation. Didn't see that coming, right? But there again, fact is it's change. And as Jalen alluded to, supply and demand. Um, I guess I'll leave with this point, it being that for as crazy as some of us might say, what? Sold for how much? Remember, sellers just put the price out there. You need a buyer to ultimately say yes or no to it, right? And goes back to Jalen's um, perspective and take on, you need the money to back it up. You can't just say, "Hey Jay, I'm good for a million. Can you please make sure I get that house?" Like, it's like, no, prove it. And that's the reality with these prices. For in some cases, they almost seem exaggerated. In all reality, it's lending practices that are very good. They're very stringent, and the buyer sets the price by saying, "I'll take it." And you know what? I'm not just going to take it. I'll take it for X amount over list price or at list price or whatever. So, um, I think that's the piece that we sometimes forget. Is
Yeah.
sellers, we might say, why are they putting their house up for that? It's never going to sell for that. Well, if there's a buyer for it, it will sell for that. And right now we're seeing virtually so many numbers that we never thought fathomable. It's like, huh?
Oh yeah, and then anyone that didn't hop on it prior, they're like we've all done it. We're like, okay, so I was gonna buy a house. I was gonna buy that house 5 years ago. Now I'm looking at it. Holy crap! I could have
Yeah.
sent my kids to college with all that appreciation. Like,
Yep.
okay, just don't look at it. It's
Yeah.
doesn't do anything good for the psyche. Um, Perfect. I think we're gonna wrap it up right there. We will be back after a brief message and come right back to business bookend before we put Peter on the hot seat.
Hey everybody, just wanted to let you know, regardless of how you want to learn about the real estate market, I have you covered. If you want to read about it, I've got a blog. If you want to listen to it, you're doing it right now. You can watch me on my YouTube channel. And if you want to experience it, I can help you personally navigate the real estate space. Regardless of how you want to stay informed or experience real estate, I got you covered. Just reach out at your convenience. Hopefully we'll talk soon. Hey everybody, thank you for coming back. We are on our last segment of Business Bookend and wanted to this week talk about a book I read, I'd say somewhat recently, titled "Thank You for Being Late" by Thomas Friedman. And I wanted to talk about the title real quick before we dig into the book, and that being "Thank You for Being Late." And how he came to that title was he was sitting and waiting for a friend, at I don't remember exactly if it was a train station or a restaurant exactly, but nonetheless he was waiting for him, and they were running late, and it just allowed him to eavesdrop on different conversations, and it allowed him to just think about what would he do in whether it be those situations or just gave him time to think in general, just about things. And I think that's an interesting perspective for the fact that we all have technology at our fingertips and we all want to be entertained so often. um, and I think there's a lot of value in just disconnecting a little bit and allowing yourself to think about, if there's an issue, to think through that issue versus just filling your brain with fillers and scrolling through the inevitable social media of next, 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 next. And again, I don't feel like that's where true creativity really comes from. Nonetheless, that's how he came to the title of the book. Is his friend apologized? "I'm so sorry for being late." And he's like, "No, thank you for being late," because it gave him that time to reflect himself and created one of those moments for him to think through that.
And now, when before we go into have this like nice intellectual discussion, um, I would love to hear the way that both y'all waste times, because I got like a million and one in my back pocket that I thoroughly enjoy, but I know they're complete wastes of time. Um, Peter, what's a guilty pleasure that's to just cook off an hour or two that's just you?
It's always good to get on the grill, flip something, because at the end you get to enjoy that. That's definitely uh,
You're a good
one of
cook.
my faves. Yeah,
Nice.
spending time with my son now. You're looking at 41 years of not having that, and now I've been enjoying it the last 2 years. So it's not a guilty pleasure, but it's definitely something I enjoy. But more of the guilty pleasure. I mean, ah, can't
What's
really think
the
of one.
what's the go-to cut of meat or thing to throw on the Barbie then? What do you make a wicked one? Yeah, Queen of England's coming over, President, whoever you want. There comes
Uh,
on
I, I,
Rhodey, and you're
a
making
nice.
something.
I would like to probably cook them a nice ribeye.
Ooh,
Yeah, with some cauliflower and some asparagus, probably. Yep,
mm,
just
talking my language.
nice,
Okay.
nice corn on the cob. So yeah, that's definitely, for some people. I know it's a strain to be in the kitchen, but for me, it's therapeutic actually, because I really try to look at it as I'm cooking for my wife, who's taking care of my kids, and if she doesn't eat good, she's not going to take care of the kids good. And um, it just it goes back to what Nick had said about making it into a positive. And for me, I'm probably perspiring and I'm a little tired, but at the end, when she's like, "Oh, I feel so good. Thank you. That was so delicious." It makes me feel good. And my son just changing things up. A great eater. He's not very picky. So I definitely have to say that the whole cooking is something that I really enjoy, and it's a break from everything, and you get to really see the finished product and how much you put into it when your audience is enjoying it, or your people. It's great for me.
Nice. Love that. Nick, what do you waste time on?
Phew. Not something as productive, that's for sure. I'm guilty of sports. I'm a sports fanatic junkie. Don't follow any specific team per se. Just want to know what's going on, whether it be the NCAA tournament, who's playing who just beat who, whether it's the men's, the women's, NFL, basketball, soccer. Like I'm that's my guilty thing of Sports Center. It's like on in the background. Not that I'm literally just sitting on a couch watching it for 2 hours, but getting lost and paying attention enough to say, yeah, I'm not as productive as I probably should be or could be for I don't know. It happens. It happens. So Jay, let's throw that one on you.
Boy, do you guys make me feel like a piece of crap. That's not. You guys are like, oh, I do it in the background. I'm productive. I cook for my family. I'm like, so I like to play auto chess, which sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is. But I like doing the strategy games and stuff. It's all on the phone. I learned, gave up actual console gaming and computer gaming after my son was born, because you guys know you don't have you stop hearing them. You see that they go out of your line of sight, and then you don't hear anything. That's when you know something's up. Usually like a splash in the toilet. So everything I do now is just on my phone for some sort of games, but it's a way for, I think it's that whole completely detaching from reality at the end of the day, is still what I do. Now it's only or mostly just in that time where I'm sitting in a room while my 1.5-year-old is falling asleep. And that's about it that I can get in, because otherwise it's just all the other stuff that you get to do that
Yep.
you're graced with doing as a family man, whether it's laundry. Um, Breaking Bad has been a big thing right now. We watch that when the kids are asleep, do some laundry, have some wife and husband time watching a show about cooking meth. So good times. Um, let's
Well,
hop. Yeah.
yeah, to hop back on the business book rabbit hole. With one piece that's always stuck with me since I read it is he presented the idea that never have we been as technologically connected or connected through technology as we are today. Yet such a profound disease that we still have, and really more now than ever, is isolation. So never have we been more technologically connected, yet experience so much isolation simultaneously. So just an interesting thought that,
Yeah.
like I said, it's always been there in the back of my mind. Like, true
And
fact.
let's even during the whole pandemic, I think the people that were struck hardest by this were children for a bunch of reasons. First off, parents are still, it's almost like you're seeing your parents be more emotionally disconnected from you because you're seeing them 8 hours a day more. But at the same time, they're not focusing on you. So that's definitely something that kids had to understand, parents had to understand. Peter, you're working with kids on a daily basis. Um, what does that look like when you see, say, like a brand new kid that has not been a part of a group like what Boys and Girls Club provides, and so when they first start and they're used to being disconnected with people, they're only connecting with people via text or online when they're playing with friends. How does that look versus being at the Boys and Girls Club and interacting with other kids for however long, a few months, a year? What does that progression look like on an individual level? And is there any particular people that kind of jump out to you, like, oh, this is a perfect example of what happens, or maybe there's just an overall rule? I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I think, you know, just to back up a little bit, in the beginning of the pandemic, I know the Boys and Girls Club, it really, for us, it brought out our creativity. You know, you had staff jumping in the vans and going to the members' houses and tossing a water balloon and some little man-made hat. One of the staff members did, which was a brilliant idea. They were celebrating their graduation with posters and streamers and showing up at their door. So just keeping that relationship and that connection together. Um, I know staff were putting together little care packages and kids were given a little curriculum to do these things at home. So we had to really get creative and think outside of the box so that one, we don't lose our kids, and two, we stay connected with them. Um, it was a big taking because this was something we've never done before. But I think with the whole pandemic, you had to improvise, um, and be innovative, to keep our kids. And it's been successful, but we did see a decrease in our numbers. Then when everything with the computers and the schools started handing out laptops so that the kids could stay connected, we did our best. We got our connect. We had to get more internet. Um, get our internet going for all our kids, and being able to hold all the computers at the same time. It was just, it was a tall order, and we were able to kind of stumble a few times, but definitely come out on top. When the kids come in from being isolated so long, it was, you can definitely see a change. You can see a bit of a distance, but I think the staff at all of our sites were really prepared to come into this and like, hey, we need to recognize those kids. We need to see how we could get them engaged and pull them back, and have them have some sort of buy-in from them. And so the relationships with the staff and the kids was very crucial too. Um, and I think now we're still not at 100% to capacity with which are at our sites, but the we're starting to do more recruitment, and the numbers are starting to pick up. We lost a few kids who didn't come back to the program just for personal reasons. They just chose to stay home or whatnot. But a good majority of our kids did come back. So it's talks about just the remarkable staff that we have in the team, and just our administrative staff just going out there and trying to find ways to keep this funding going for these new expenses that you don't include, you don't see. But with a pandemic, nobody's seen that coming. So we were blindsided, and at the end, we came out on a good end, and we still have our kids, and we're starting to increase, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's a brilliant story, and I'd like to just briefly share how I even got introduced to the Boys and Girls Club myself. Because, as we said at the beginning of this, I've only known Peter, gosh, a month ish, maybe a little longer. But my first meeting for the Monrovia Rotary had the Boys and Girls Club, just happened to have the Boys and Girls Club presenting kind of their story and how they were able to navigate through the pandemic, and what they are as a local program. So, though I wanted to get myself involved in two or three clubs, and really solidify myself in my community. And the day they presented, the fact that John, being what, the CEO for, yep, um,
Yep.
John's the CEO club here in Monrovia, and he just shared how engaged they were trying to get with the kids, to engage them, as well as taking the initiative. I think those are two things that stuck with me, because I think unfortunately there were and are a lot of individuals or companies that choose to wait. I'll wait and see how this thing pans out, and we'll see where all the chips fall, and then whatever comes my way comes my way. And personally, psychologically, that's not how I work. I like to take initiative and want to align myself with individuals, companies that look at life and scenarios the same way. And so when that story was shared, I was like, I need to be a part of that. So then I reached out, and I think that day or the following day, and then Peter and I got to talking, and now I'm finding myself volunteering a couple days a week at the Boys and Girls Club. But that's how that happened organically, and I think it's just a really neat story to hear how a local club that doesn't have any responsibility necessarily to say you've had to do that. It's just, guys, we have to be more creative and find a solution to this problem because we want to do that. I think there's a lot to be said for that. So, and then the whole fact of the whole Zoom piece that everybody was handicapped by, and to facilitate discussions or activities, again, just to keep the conversation going. Because I know in a prior discussion, Jay and I talked about remote work. How do you build culture when you're on Zoom and when you're just linking in one time a week? And I think one way you can try to navigate that as best you can is facilitate conversations, create different opportunities that you wouldn't create face to face, to again have those, to be able to think through situations and still collaborate, and still create something unique of like, wow, that was different, that was fun, versus just settle for, we'll chat a little bit and you walk away from it and say, meh, how was it? Yeah, it was fine,
Yeah.
so
100%. It's definitely that engagement piece, and what kind of engagement. I think for so long it was just being engaged, being a part of something better was kind of the status quo. As long as you're a part of something, no matter how you're doing it, that's good. And I think COVID. Let's take a quick lesson from that. In that, just being around, just talking to other people itself doesn't make it doesn't ultimately make you fulfilled with that human connection piece of things. It does. You do need to have that physical connection. You do need to be able to see people, interact with them, and especially with your peer group, which is what the Boys and Girls Club is really great at doing. um, I think that we've covered this as best as we can, but I do want to finish this discussion with just one question referring back to thank you for being late, which is, what do you think is the most important skill for individuals to possess in order to thrive in today's world?
Peter,
Just a
anything?
casual question to finish up Friday for you, Peter. So, and you are muted, Peter.
Yep. I definitely feel to thrive, it would be to have compassion, definitely for others. It goes a long way, and it goes everything what we pretty much covered in this conversation with just feeling good about yourself and helping others. It goes full circle, and turning a negative into the positive and seeing the positive aspects of it. And, I mean, that takes compassion. You can't just, pick that up. You gotta, and I think one of the things that we focus on, and as a parent, I do it. I try to teach my son. Here at the Boys and Girls Club, we've purchased some lizards so that the kids can learn compassion, and even if they don't have it, just adopt it because they're caring for a little animal. I mean, I read somewhere that children, if they see a squirrel in the park and they've never had any interaction with an animal, they try to chuck a rock at it. So what I did is I went home and I bought my son a fancy gecko. So we let him hold it a little bit every now and then to pet it, to touch it, but it takes practice, and just having that compassion. I think it's something special to that everybody should have, or. Yep.
Well, I'm gonna piggyback that to say, as they continue to get older, because I think it's not realistic for the younger kids, I don't know, to have this quality, but to thrive as they get older is self awareness. And again, that's something that's realistically developed as you get older. Nonetheless, that ability to reflect on your experiences, to see, to look at yourself in the mirror, because I think it is so easy to blame. Well, Peter didn't do that for me. Well, Jalen's holding me back. It's like, well, hold on, time out, time out. Who's guiding the story of that, of your life that you're living, right? And I think it's so easy to place the blame elsewhere, and that ability to be aware of, what am I doing, who am I surrounding myself with, and taking responsibility for that. Um, Again, to allow anyone to thrive in the space they're in.
Oh yeah, and that's, I'm just going to steal both of yours because they were good answers, and I don't know what else to. A compassionate person is one of the strongest forces in the world, and you can only be compassionate when you're able to have that self awareness. And I think wrapping it all back together, interacting with others, so having compassion for others, and being able to compare your experience to someone else or understand that someone else's experience is different from yours is going to be what generates that compassion and having full self-awareness. I think that's an awesome place to wrap up this conversation. I don't think that we can solve the most important skill for an individual in a 10-minute segment on a 30-minute podcast. But now, Peter, before we let you go, and we appreciate you taking more than enough time with us today, Nick is going to roast you on the hot seat. Metaphorically, this isn't so we want to have a little bit of sense of discomfort, but really just go with the first thing that comes to mind on these. This is not us trying to cook you like a prime rib for Bon Jovi. This is just us trying to know what makes Peter tick with the most obscure questions out there. So Nick,
Yeah.
Peter, I'll let you guys go.
Yeah. So for all the listeners out there, we like to conclude our podcast with a few simple questions for any guest we have, just to get a snapshot of those that we know, like, and trust with an activity we call the hot seat. So this is inspired by the great and late James Lipton. So with no further ado, again, Peter, we're just looking for the first answer that comes to your mind. You ready?
Yep.
What is your favorite word?
Always.
What is your least favorite word?
Quit.
What sound or noise do you love?
Probably the sound of my son, his laughter.
What sound or noise do you hate?
I have to say the one from the one that Jim Carrey makes, the movie. He's like, "You want to hear the most annoying sound?"
Yep, I know it. If you didn't do what you're doing, what profession would you like to do?
Something with criminal justice, definitely probation, police officer, something of that nature.
Okay. What profession would you never like to do?
I want to say something in the restaurant business. Even though I like to cook, something server, host, master chef. No,
Okay. And before you die, where must you visit?
Probably New York.
Okay.
I would love to go to New York.
There you go. So thank you, Peter. And now everybody got to know Peter just a little bit better. So guys, thank you for joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when and where you're listening. Thank you for joining us for another week here on Beyond Real Estate with Jalek. And until next time, you can find us on the same place, same time a week from now.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks again for listening. If you want to hear more of Jalen McKenna, Colorado's mortgage dad, and his take on the Colorado real estate market, or just mortgages and mortgage news in general, check out the links below.
Also, check out the links below for more information on products, books, or references made in this podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.